We gotta stop worrying about the dang trophies, y'all, and start being concerned about raising strong, resilient human beings. Because if social media is a snapshot of where we're going in our society, we're in real big trouble.
Welcome to Limitless Minds, the podcast where curiosity meets greatness. If you're ready to discover what it takes to be truly limitless and push beyond your own limits, you're in the right place.
Welcome back to the Limitless Minds Podcast. We got Harry Wilson and myself, Joshua Lifrak, bringing you a great episode today. We're going to dive into really this concept of balance and how do we balance our lives from the corporate side, from the family side, from being a dad, being an entrepreneur, being a corporate athlete, being a professional athlete. And does balance really exist? I think those are some of the questions we're going to answer today. And to help us answer those questions, we have a really, really great friend of mine who is one of the leading mental performance coaches, but he's more like, he's not even a mental performance coach, Harry. He's more of a life
strategic advisor for
strategic advisor.
Life.
Yeah. His name is James Reid. He goes by JR. He's a former Division I athlete, played baseball at the highest levels of D1. And from the baseball world, he transitioned to become one of the leading agents in the baseball world, and then subsequently left that. He'll tell that story. And became, went on this 15, 20-year journey of being an entrepreneur and a strategic advisor / mental performance coach. So we are so excited. We think you're going to love this podcast. There are real learning lessons and a lot of questions that get answered. So if you've ever wondered about how to balance it all, JR is coming to you and he's going to give you the answers. Welcome back to the Limitless Minds Podcast. Today we have James Reid, who's with us in the studio. We're so excited. JR and I have been friends for years, really since about 2017, 18, right in that realm. Spent multiple lunches together talking about the mental game, because James is one of the foremost mental trainers in the world. I'm not talking about just kind of good. This is a guy who gets it and can get deep and gets people to really open themselves up and take those next steps that maybe they didn't even know they could take. So we're excited to have James here today with us on the podcast. And we're going to dive down kind of a couple different holes. But one of the things we're going to really investigate is life off the field, not only for the professional athlete, but the corporate athlete too. And what we find too is hey, when you have your life outside of the performance realm in check, you're able to show up even better for that performance. So, James, we're so excited to have you, man. How you doing today? What's going on?
This is great to be here, man. There you go, calling me James again, man, like I'm in some trouble or something. My gosh.
JR.
I didn't want to mess up James Reid and start calling you JR Reid again. We just went through this about 5 minutes.
People are going to notice within seconds, if they're watching the video of this, I do not have a 2-foot flat top right now. So we're good. We're good.
Valid call out.
It's all good.
I'm excited to be here, fellas. I know we've been talking about doing this together, so I'm glad we finally got the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, man.
Well,
I'm excited to have you. Harry's here today too. Harry Wilson, Harry B. Wilson with the good hat on. Harry, what questions do you have for James?
Well, I mean,
JR.
I don't have the advantage of having like the decade background with JR, and so and neither do our listeners. So I'm really curious to just learn a little bit about where you're at and what you're up to currently. But Josh was sharing with me offline too some of the origin stories, some of what's kind of brought you here today, and I would love for you to take us through some of that. Really at the top. I mean, I know you mentioned that there was a car accident that kind of catalyzed some of the things that you're up to now and whatnot. Sure. But maybe just give us and myself and the listeners a little bit of just kind of that storyboard. So for who you are and where you're at.
Well, I won't, like some of my guests have done in the past, I won't give you 20 minutes straight of the story, because I know, the story is going to come out in our conversation today. But, the quick and dirty version of it is, D1 athlete with dreams of playing professional baseball, and had 2 hip injuries that pretty much shut that down. But I always knew, my first job, not by choice, my parents made me start caddying at 13 years old. I was growing up in Chicago and had Medina Country Club 15 minutes from my house. And it was a premier country club, highly private, with a lot of celebrities and professional athletes that would come through. And I got in with a member who his job was to essentially entertain them, bring them out on the course. And I would get the call. I mean, from, the Pink Floyds all the way down to, John Smoltz and Glavine and Maddox and all these guys that at 13, 14, 15, I got a firsthand taste of what the life of a celebrity and a high profile athlete looks like. And it wasn't all what I thought it was. I was hearing about the marriages. I was hearing about the broken deals. I was hearing about everything I probably shouldn't have been hearing at 13, 14, and 15. So early in my life, there was this interest or this drive to serve this demographic. But I said, no, wait, that'll come later. I want to be a professional athlete. Never got that opportunity because of my injuries and just how things shook out. But I knew that I had to fulfill that dream that I had even before wanting to be a professional athlete. And that's what woke me up as a caddy. So here I go, pursuing everything I could possibly pursue, did my MBA, did my law degree, got involved in business and finance. Like, I just wanted to circle the wagons to figure out how I could help these people, this demographic of persons, if you will, with everything that they've essentially are going through in life. And ironically, I get this supposed dream job after I got done mentoring student athletes. So I was doing my MBA and law degree. And within 3 months of the dream job, I realized I wasn't in a dream. I was in a nightmare. I was working with a bunch of toxic people. I was working insane hours. I was traveling 4 days a week, every week, and woke up one morning and said, what am I doing? Like, this is not how I dreamed this up to be. And, instead of being a very responsible husband, I did not share how I was feeling with my wife. I was scared to, because we had just moved back to the Midwest where, she was closer to her family. I was closer to my family. And it was like, we made all these sacrifices to get here. And now this is it. Yeah. So I literally woke up every day miserable. Many days where I woke up wanting to end my life. I would cope with alcohol and entered into the proverbial mental health crisis. But on the outside, I was crushing it. I mean, professionally, like, people were looking up to me. People are like, I'm getting the LinkedIn pings every day. Like, man, I want to do what you.
Right.
And, to close this up, because I don't want to get too many gory details because they'll be fleshed out, but I was literally losing my marriage. I was losing connection to my kids, who were very young at the time, and my health was going to hell in a handbasket. Digestive issues, obviously the mental, emotional issues. Like, it was bad to the point where I wanted to drive my car off the Chicago, over the bridge to the Chicago River. So fortunately, yes, my wife and I get in this car accident, shook me to my core. Somehow we ended up in the middle of a high-speed chase on the Eisenhower heading into the city. And some guy stole a car at gunpoint. And then the chase ended up, and we were one of the 3 cars that just so happened to be hit in the middle of it. But saw some things that really shook my wife and I. And it was that moment for me that I said, okay, this all needs to stop. Looked my wife in the eyes and said, honey, we're starting over here. Because if this continues, A, we won't continue, and B, I sure as heck won't continue. So luckily I made that decision, and here we are 10 years later, finally living the dream on my terms, if you will.
Yeah. I love it, man.
Does that help paint the picture?
Yeah.
Paint the picture. So what was that transition like for you? And I think, maybe talk about this, that one of the things I've seen in the world of pro sports is a lot of times that transition away from the sport can be really, 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 really challenging for people. And here you were doing something that you didn't love doing, but then you transitioned out of it. And how were you able to navigate that? And what made you successful in that transition?
It's interesting because I still was identifying as an athlete. And I mean, even today, if you ask me, do you identify as that? Absolutely. It's just my self-worth is not tied to that specific identity. But I'll be honest with you, fellas, I refuse to go any baseball games. Like, I'm done. I don't want to be near a Major League Baseball stadium. I don't even want to watch baseball anymore. So that was the reaction. I think it was, if you were to really analyze it, it was me just pouting and me denying, almost grieving and denying what was happening. But, when you got kids who love baseball and so many of your relationships are in baseball, that didn't last too long. But It was, the transition for me was going on this journey to truly understand who I was becoming, and really considering all of that, who was going with me. And until I got crystal clear on all three of those, then I realized, okay, I still need to be in baseball. I just need to interpret its role in my life very differently than what it was when I was in that mental health crisis, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What's interesting, Josh, and you know this, pretty well. I mean, I have a brother that's transitioning from, being that dude and that player, played the NFL for 14, 15 years, and has kind of announced that he's done, and so as a brother, an older brother, I'm hopeful and optimistic that he's going to handle this transition well, but I'm also a little nervous, a little worried. How is he going to? Because he is that cut of that athlete who never really thinks they're done. Right. Never wants to be done. And sometimes the league or they tell you you're finished, or your body tells you you're finished, or, some version of that. And then also strategically you want to make the right choice on, like, when's the right time, opportunity costs, like what am I going to do next? And so I think that, from an observation perspective, I'll be curious as we go into this first season where he hasn't played since he was 11 years old. Right. How he handles it. Right. And I think lucky for him, he's still in football. Right. He's going to be working at CBS. He's going to be at the desk, pregame on Sundays, et cetera. And so hopefully, that access to the game and being able to kind of have a different POV on it will kind of fill some level of void. But, I do wonder that grieving process. You mentioned that grief. I like that you said that, because even as an observer, I've gone through some grief on him hanging it up. Right. Because this is all this is what we've known for 20 years. And this is, unfortunately, yet fortunately, a kind of part of our relationship has been built around, the games, right? And the little moments in between, and sharing the highs and the lows. And so it is kind of a grieving process for that transition. And just like any grief, the perspective on it is something that I think it can be a skill. And sometimes you can't go at it alone. So having that kind of somebody, or a group or whatever that can kind of support you through it. But so that just caught me when you mentioned that word grief. That caught me as relatable. You know what I mean?
It's interesting. Josh brings up the T word, the transition word. Mm-hmm. And then you just mentioned, Harry, you mentioned skill. And so just to connect dots to the story I just shared and how this question even brought up, ironically, it was baseball that really started the fire, if you will, to go down this deep rabbit hole of this whole idea of transitioning. It was the Major League Baseball pitch clock. Remember that, Josh? When it got instituted, it was like, I want to say, I
love that when it got instituted, because in baseball, this, JR, is that as soon as something new comes into baseball, everyone's like, no, it won't work. It won't work.
Fire drill.
And I just remember all the managers and the coaches like screaming and yelling about it. I'm just sitting there going, this is brilliant. This is going to be so good.
Yeah. So interestingly, in Harry, I know we just met, like, I'm trying, like, especially the agents that have referred business to me, I'm like, don't sell me as the mental guy. Like, that is just a sliver of the work I'm doing with these players and executives. But I said, I'm getting calls left and right. Like, my hitters are panicking. My pitchers are panicking because of this pitch clock. So I started working with them to transition pitch to pitch. And so I'm like going deep into like, how do I make these guys transition better, in the 8 to 12 seconds they have, because right now they're just reacting.
I can't do my routine.
Right. So then that opened the door to, man, people are struggling to transition from professional Harry, Josh, and JR to personal Harry, Josh, and JR. Then that opened the door to, oh my gosh, man, people are struggling to transition from season to season, whether it's a life season or like you're talking about your brother, from professional athlete to professional, which is very similar to the whole military transition from, military man or woman to civilian. And no, it's been a 5-year journey, me just going hard in the paint on this whole idea of transition. We are under indexing on this skill because I truly believe it is a skill to learn and to master. And we're not talking about it enough. So I appreciate you two bringing this up, because in my experience, both personally and professionally, and in working with my clients who are at your world too, pro athletes and executive or corporate athletes, the men, and I work primarily with men, the men who are really leaning into this are not only performing at a higher level, they are showing up at home at a higher level. And isn't that what we're all after?
Yeah, I mean, this is hitting home because, obviously I mentioned the Russ observational seat that I have, but also just at my own nuclear home. I feel like we're in this transition phase. We got the kids are getting a little older and kind of hitting some milestones. Like my oldest is going to high school, and already they already started, by the way. They already started. I mean, like we start early. I don't know if you start early in Orlando, but we started last week, right? And so she's a freshman, and quickly we've realized like how little we see her compared to how often we would see her when she was at the middle school across the street. Right. And, just because she's in a carpool with a junior and sophomore, she's got field hockey practice in the evening. So that time between, I'm either at the office or she's not home. And so I see her at 9 p.m. when she gets home from practice for 45 minutes before it's okay. Now you hit the sack. Right. And it's like, how do I stay nimble and agile to fit her new reality versus trying to get the reality that we're in to fit what I'm used to. Right. Yeah. And it's been kind of tough. Like it's kind of beat me up a little bit. And so, we're right in the thick of it. So I don't, I haven't kind of developed the solution around it, but that's why
this is share what I've been doing.
Hit me, man. Coach me up.
Listen, sorry, Josh, this is going to be me and Harry right now.
Josh, sit on the side.
You can keep calling me James. Harry, I'm in that right now. So I have a freshman, first year freshman, and then the 6th grader and a 3rd grader. And it's like I'm getting the weird vibe, skin chills just talking about this, because it's like I got 4 years left. Yeah. What the heck? Yeah. And I will tell you, there's a couple of questions I asked my son recently that has really opened the door and allowed me, I'm going to use your word, allowed me to be a little more nimble, because I feel like I could be more nimble when I'm more aware of what's really going on in their head. Yeah. And I said to him last week, because we started this week too, I said, hey, Caleb, I said, man, how can I be a better father to you right now in this season? Like, just give it to me. You can even tell me how I've been screwing up, but I want to know how I could be a better father to you in this season. And then I asked him, I said, hey man, okay, great. What do you need from me in this season? And you know what the answer I got to that one right out of the gate? Well, man, Dad, I don't know. A typical 14-year-old answer, right? I don't know.
Exactly. I'm familiar with that answer. Yeah.
Yep. But we know we've made it in our household where I don't know is not an answer. I said, so man, let me do this for me. Caleb, give me an idea of what you see as your goals for the next, let's just call it the next 30 days, man. Because, I wanted to go until the end of the year, give me all your goals. But I'm like, this dude's mind and heart are running on overdrive right now, from a hormonal standpoint, from an emotional, like dude's in it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, just the next 30 days, man, give me some idea of your goals. And then you and I will work together on what you need. Fair enough? Yeah, Dad. Sounds good. So this weekend, I'm supposed to get the report back, but just that conversation and starting it has woken me up to where his head is at in this season. And I don't feel like, in talking to other parents, I don't feel like we're having enough of these conversations, because you know how many parents I've talked to, like, Jay, what are you doing, man? Like, my kids don't even want to talk to me. Like, they don't even listen to me anymore. I'm like, well, that's a problem. Because if they're not listening to you, they're listening to social media or their other friends. And how do you know what they're saying?
Hey, Coach, I know I got put on the sidelines here, but I'm going to jump in anyways, Coach. So, JR, my son is 15. He's going into his sophomore year, and my oldest son is in your neck of the woods at UCF as a sophomore in college. One of the things that I committed to doing once they got into high school and the time started getting shorter with them was I just committed to waking up with them in the mornings, no matter what. I'm up 10 minutes before my son is. My son has his own alarm clock. He makes his own breakfast, makes his own lunch. He rides his bike to school. Wow. And I'm going to spend those 45 minutes we have in the morning with him every day. Every day that I'm home, I do that. If I'm on the road, I pick up the phone around 7 a.m. because I know he's eating breakfast right then. And I call him and we'll just talk for 5 minutes. So that 45 minutes or that 5 to 10 minutes is gold. Yes. And it allows you to connect with them a little bit. So just carving that little bit of time out is huge. So that would be my suggestion to both of you two. If there's time in the morning that you could do it, that'd be huge. The other thing is exactly what you said, JR, in terms of what are your goals with my sophomore at college. One of the things that UCF does, I'm a huge advocate of that school. It's a phenomenal school. But one of the things they did when he was going through his orientation, they said, guess what, folks? Congratulations, you got your kid to college. They're adults now. You've gone from being the parent to being the advisor. And you're going to be there and you're going to walk beside them, but you're not going to dictate what they do. You can give them advice, you can listen to them, but be available for them. But you can't be like, hey, you have to go to that 8 a.m. class. They're going to make mistakes. And just be there to help them process those mistakes and learn through them. And I love that advice as a parent, sending your kid off to college for the first time. So, this summer, my oldest son, he's been asking me to be his accountability partner. He's been asking me to do stuff with him that we've never done before. We go rock climbing at our local gym, right? And so we had this time where we connect, and he's talked to me about his fears of going back into college. He had an okay first year, had to take a couple summer classes, crushed those summer classes, but now he's going back in for that. He's doing mechanical engineering as well, so no joke. So now, but the thing that was awesome, and you talk about transitions, is, okay, I've transitioned from being this dad who was waking him up in the mornings to a guide on the side a little bit, and I think that's something too, to kind of just check on and see where you're at with that as a parent, because the kids will respect that. They love that. They want to come into their own. They want to put their feet on the ground. They want to mess up. They want to learn.
Well, if there's parents listening to this that have younger kids, there's a key note you just dropped here. Like, Josh, the fact that your son in college wants you to be his accountability partner says everything about how you raised him and your relationship with him up until college. Right. That just doesn't happen overnight. And us parent, and again, I don't have this down perfectly. I've just decided to do things differently and decided, like all of us as athletes, hey, so-and-so's having crazy success as an athlete. What's he doing?
Yep.
What's he reading? Who's he training with? Right? I'm doing the same thing with parents. Like, I want, that relationship with his kids and okay, what's he doing differently? And I will say, like, could we stop worrying about how our kids are performing academically and athletically and start building a relationship with them, knowing that they are going to be out of the house? And do we want to continue that relationship when they're in the house, or are we just going to be mom or dad? Like, I feel like there's a lot of mom and dad and then son and daughter. Mm-hmm. There's not the family relationship anymore. And this whole youth sports landscape, I know I'm only speaking to a sliver of the world that has kids in sports. I'm sure it's happening in the, music and acting version of that too. But it's like, we're getting this so wrong. because we're pushing our kids so much to fulfill something, and in the process, we're killing our relationship with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we got to step up now.
No, I mean, we could do 100 podcasts on the youth athletic space. And I mean, and I listen to them. It's on my algorithm, right, on social media, because I'm in that zone right now. But it's wild. I think we'll talk more about the youth, maybe we'll talk a little more about youth athletes here shortly. But one of the things that I'm also curious about, somewhat selfishly, but I think we have some folks that listen and tune in that are in a similar boat, is, I'm a founder of a company, founder and CEO of Limitless Minds. I have a wonderful wife who works her tail off. She's an attorney. 3 daughters, by the way. So I mentioned Gracie, who's 14. I got 3 daughters. So she's the oldest. Yeah. So, I mean, thank you. Yeah. Please give me that holy water that, you know what I mean? Anoint me. But it's, and they're amazing. Right. And I couldn't imagine anything. I couldn't imagine any different life. Right. So I want to be a great leader. I want to be a great founder, CEO, entrepreneur. And that's its own thing, execution. I want to be a great leader within that bubble. But I also want to be like the 100% of the great husband, right? I want to be 100% of the great father, and just this constant tug and pull that, the greatness in those areas requires. And it feels like it's hard to accomplish that in each of those categories at the same time. Sometimes in different seasons, we mentioned seasons, in some seasons, I feel like I'm killing this fatherhood thing right now. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm showing up, I'm at all the stuff. I got a good relationship with the girls. And then that season shifts, and it's like, well, I'm really focused on Courtney right now. We're jiving, we're doing our date nights, we're locked in. But then shoot, like the business, like I don't feel like I'm not feel like I'm working optimally, and then sometimes I'm crushing in work, and then I'm sacrificing the other areas. And so that's one thing I want to know is, like, what are you seeing from like high achieving, high potential, individuals? Like what is it that's preventing us from being what we might call successful or doing great work, if you will, in all these different areas? How do we balance that? If is balance even the right word to use? Is that what we're actually striving for?
Nope. So Harry, first of all, man, I appreciate your humility and transparency in this, because again, and I don't know how many people in your audience were athletes at any level, high school, college, pro, whatever. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I guess you don't even have to be or previously were an athlete to have this DNA of, I'm going all out no matter what I'm in. That's how I was wired as an athlete. That's what I was, middle average with talent, middle average, but I outworked everybody, studied the mental game, found mentors, and next thing you know, I'm passing this dude. That's how we operate. But this is why I'm so passionate about working with athletes who've transitioned to entrepreneur, executive leader. That same drive does not work in life in the big picture. The wrong mindset is, I'm going to be 100% as a husband, and 100% as a father, and 100% as a founder, and then 100% as an athlete. And then like everything has to be 100%. And this is the paradigm shift that I had to make, that when I share it with my clients, they're going, whoa. It's almost like you see their shoulders drop, because I gave them permission to maintain certain areas of their life while they're driving on one area. Mm-hmm. And in my philosophy, and I'm curious how you guys receive this and how this lands with y'all. But I sit here and go, you know what? There's seasons. Maybe that season's a week. Maybe it's 90 days. Maybe it's 30 days. There are seasons where there's a life category that needs to get 100%, that needs to get the version of you that's going all out. Well, there's still 8, 9 other life categories. So what are we going to do? We're going to figure out how to maintain the level we're at in those categories, and at the very least not move backwards. And we're going to get crystal clear on how long that maintenance period, how long that's going to last. And we have to be very honest with each other on what that all looks like, because this is the problem. The balance word has been thrown around for, I got to have life work balance. That has been spewed for decades, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here, no, it's life work integration. That's what this is. We don't live in little cardboard boxes and compartmentalize our life. We can't do that. So that's, Harry, that has been my approach. And I will tell you, I have seen more fulfillment in the life categories in my life. I've seen more fulfillment across them taking this approach, that it's like, okay, you know what? I'm in a heavy season with my business right now. All right, JR, how long can you willingly afford, considering everything else is going on, and would be willing to do? How long could you sustain going all out in the business while everything is maintained? Well, man, honestly, just looking at this, looking at that, looking at this, it's probably 3 weeks. Okay, what does that look like? All right, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. I have to pull an hour from here and put it over here. And then I need to communicate with my wife. Hey, honey, for the next 3 weeks, this is where I need to pull from husband and pull from father. What do you think of that? How does that affect you? How could you fill the lanes? Like, you see where I'm going here?
Yep.
Because I need to maintain our marriage. I need to maintain fatherhood. I need to maintain this while this 3 week season's going in. But then at the end of 3 weeks, I'm going to revisit everything and see where I need to go all in next.
You know what's jumping out at me is just the intentionality of it. You know, we talk all the time, JR, about life by design versus life by default. And what you're talking about right there is absolutely life by design, where it's like, hey, this is what I got. I'm going to communicate. I'm going to be clear. I'm going to choose to dive in hard for these next 3 weeks, but I'm going to be really intentional about it. And I'm also, not only am I going to do that, but I'm going to continue to build my bonds. I'm going to continue to foster my relationships by being really clear in communication and being really honest and being really open. It just, you know, it's funny. It reminded me of when I decided to get out of baseball. For JR knows this, Harry, you probably know this, but maybe our listeners don't. But baseball is brutal in terms of the amount of time you're on the road. I personally spent over 200 days a year in hotels on the road when I was with the Cubs. And what happened was really interesting is my wife became a quote unquote single mom. And she, the Cubs would not have been able to win the World Series without Karen Lefrak. I'm just telling you right now, because Karen took care of my boys and allowed me to do the best job that I possibly could. Now, they might have won without the mental skill stuff or whatever, but I think that 1% made a difference in the 10th inning of Game 7. I'm just saying. So the reality is, you know, her sacrificing for my career at that point, it goes unheralded and it goes unnoticed. But once we got to that 5 years done, we looked at each other and we said, hey, listen, we can't do this anymore. This is not going to work. Just like you were talking about, JR. And it was you know, we really got clear that I had to get out of baseball because this was not what we valued as a family anymore. So it was huge. It was huge.
I don't want the audience to miss the permission point, as I call it. Yeah. You don't have to be 100% in every single life category.
Yeah.
You don't. We wonder why so many people are feeling burned out. And then you get all the research out there, the psychological research about burnout in the marketplace. And this is why. I mean, Josh, if I asked you to interview me right now and write a paper at the same time, could you do that? Could you go all in on both?
I couldn't. I would need help, right?
He would cheat. He would go to ChatGPT and say, right, water.
Right. But you know, and this is I'm giving this specific analogy and comparison because there's another nugget in here for you know, your corporate athletes. Let's just say, JR, I'm gonna give it a shot. What do you have to do? You have to task switch. You literally have to go from interviewing JR to writing the paper and then going back and then going back. Like, it's just constant back and forth, back and forth. Well, the research says that for every interruption, it takes on average 27 to 30 minutes to get back into full focus on what you're doing. Okay. So can you imagine if we went through our day like that, which I know a lot of corporate athletes are, task switching, and catching up. You are going to be mentally, emotionally, physically, relationally exhausted by the end of the day. That is the same thing you're doing if you're going, I'm going all in as a dad in these next 21 days and all in as a father and all in as a founder and all in as that's what's happening. But for some reason, the message isn't getting to our corporate execs and our athletes that, look, our brains and our bodies just don't, God didn't design us to work like that. So why are we trying to do it? So I hope someone is blessed by the idea, wait, JR, Josh, Harry, you're telling me I don't have to go all in all the time on every single life category? That's exactly what we're saying. But be intentional about how you are navigating and integrating your life categories.
And then be clear too. I think that's the other thing. I think yes, and like intentionality and clarity. Intentionality and clarity. You get those two things and you're honest, you're open, you're vulnerable. Great things happen.
All day. Love it.
Yeah. I mean,
Harry, what do you got? What's hitting you, Harry?
Well, I've asked, a couple of questions, because, these are things that I'm personally going through right now. Right. And so I'm, selfishly, I'm kind of stealing this time for my own, my own, working on myself.
Alone,
right.
Brother.
And I know before we started talking about that kind of, is balance something to strive for, in the situation where you're trying to be all of these things, we were, right before we were talking about that, we were kind of talking about this youth, athlete space, and, and Limitless Minds is beginning to kind of forge a path on the horizon, potentially to take all the things we've been doing with corporate athletes to the youth athlete space, potentially, where these are just ideas. So if anybody that's listening, stay tuned, we'll see what happens. But as we talk about this space, a lot of times we're focused on the athlete, the 13 to 18-year-old athlete or the college athlete landscape. But particularly for that 13 to 18-year-old group, right? It's hard to impact that group without that athlete, without impacting the parents / coaches. In some cases, these are the same people, right? In the athlete space, right? And it's a messy world. And so, given that we have a lot of parents that do listen to this, how do you help somebody who's a really successful parent, right? They have the big job, they make a ton of money, they do whatever that, they're striving. How do you help them kind of separate being, kind of like a great, how do you separate being a great provider and from being a great parent?
I don't separate them.
Mm-hmm.
I ask them, what qualities as a professional, as a provider, that are you most proud of? And how can we leverage those strengths as a father, as a husband? I mean, I don't want to take away that from, what makes someone great in one landscape. I want to find out how can we leverage that, what they're already in their sweet spot and in the zone with. How can we leverage that? To be honest with you, like Harry, in my case here, communication. Like, I am a great communicator professionally. And then, early on in my marriage, I'm like, what the heck? Well, that's a communication issue. That's a communication issue. Like, you look at all the fights between my wife and I, it was a communication issue. And again, this is years and years ago. I'm like, okay, wait a minute, time out here. Why am I so good here, but so bad here? Something. And until I really went through that exercise, it was like, oh, so I have team meetings here in my professional space. Why am I not having a team meeting with my wife? I show up to my team meeting and the first thing we do is share wins, personal, professional wins. How come when I go meet with my wife, I'm not asking her, what's your win for the day, honey?
Yeah.
So that, Harry, I know it's a very black and white answer, but again, the way we've been brought up as professionals, I mean, this is a research paper in and of itself, Josh. Like, where did this start that we had to separate what makes us great professionally? Or just, let's stop there. Let me back up. Why do we have to separate our professional life from our personal life? Why are we not learning on both? And vice versa. Like, I am great like this as a husband. Man, as a father, I am so loving. I hand out so much grace, especially to my 8-year-old, who's my only girl. Why am I the opposite in the professional space?
Yeah.
Why am I such a jerk? Why am I so short with people?
Well, it seems like, like the drive for results, in the business personal space, is at such a premium, or you've been trained on purpose, or just, based on how long you've been doing it. to like have this drive for results as a leader. But in that space, you tend to lack empathy. And then at home, you typically lead with empathy, typically. And,
how about this one, Harry? Well, if I lock in as a husband and as a father, then I'm going to lose my steam as a professional.
Right.
I'm going to lose my edge as a competitor.
Right.
That's the problem. Again, that's how we've been raised in this professional environment, which is completely a myth.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting that people don't recognize that if you have love in your household and you have a good relationship in your household, it just gives you so much fuel for your day to day and your performances. It really does. Yeah. And those things and love and relationships and family, it takes work. Hey, it didn't happen. Like success doesn't happen by accident. It takes work. So, committing to that and not in a bad way, like in a loving way from a kind place. And then bam, you know what? You're going to get lifted. You're going to get inspired. You're going to get taken care of as well. And then you're going to show up better.
Yeah, Josh, I mean, you've heard me say this too. Like I've coined it the runner-up mindset, which I had for years. It's when I'm successful professionally, then I'll be able to take care of my family. And I kept losing with that mindset. And then the accident happened and it was like, you know what, honey, when we're successful as a family, then I'm going to be great as a professional. And look what happened.
Right. Hell yeah.
And case study after case study. And
say it louder for the people in the back of the room.
Every single person who looked me in the eye and said, when they started work with me, they're like, JR, I'm going to lose my edge. I said, we're going to track this, my man. We're going to track it. So let's start with this. Let's make your wife happy. Oh, well, JR, I don't know. And, I say this lightly, Tom, I'd love to learn more about your story and your journey. I'm not throwing shade on Tom Brady. I love Tom Brady. I love everything he's about. Right. Okay. With some asterisks. What happened is last season, arguably the strongest mentally he's ever been, arguably the strongest physically he's ever been. What was going on behind the scenes? His marriage.
Yeah.
Didn't have a very good season, did he?
Yeah.
So I use that as an example, and I have story after story. I've had, I had a Major League Baseball player. This was almost 20 years ago. JR, I need some help. Like, what do you mean, man? Like, my wife's calling me 30 minutes before first pitch, and I'm on the mound that day. What's she asking you about? Well, this is going down and this is going down. I said, well, have you guys figured out a communication strategy yet? Well, no. Have you determined what's an emergency and what's not? No. How was your performance that day? Wasn't very good. No, because we have this emotional residue just following us around to every field of play that we're on. And next thing you know, we can't perform at our highest. So this is what I'm saying. Like we get it right at home, man, everywhere else, it just seems to work itself out in better ways than you even thought. That's why I'm so amped and passionate about just sharing that message and telling people you don't lose your edge, you gain it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Y'all get me fired up.
Just drop your mic right now. Just drop it. Just drop it.
Oh, man.
I love this conversation. It's spectacular. And I think there's so much value in this for people. I don't know about you, Harry, but I've already taken like 20 notes that I'm going to apply.
Well, it's funny. Life. So like, and with Gracie going to high school, I was telling Courtney, I was like, hey, I want to sit down with her and like, there's so much that I want to kind of set a stage for the next, few years and then kind of working backwards to the micro, like the next, like you said, 30 days, 90 days, this fall, whatever it is. We need to have like kind of like a Gracie summit. Right. And honestly, that's kind of hearkened to like some of the things we might try to do at Limitless. Like, hey, let's get the team together, whether it be live or virtual, and let's just kind of, let's connect. Let's talk about, maybe there's a corner of it that's business, a corner of it that's checking on you and how you're doing, share something you're grateful for, anything that you need from us, whatever. Right. And we haven't really been doing that for this daughter who's going through this transition. I was like, we should have this little Gracie summit. We don't have to call it that, but like this little summit with her where we can talk about all these areas, right? And some of it's not the obvious stuff, right? It's like, does she understand, that now that she's going to like a private school, a Catholic school, like, hey, there's a cost to this, where's that money coming? Who's paying for that? She has some advantages in that regard. So it's like, do you understand this piece? And setting a tone for her to be really grateful for the access that she has based on things that, some resources that we have, right? Cool. What does that mean as far as how we're thinking about, 4 years from now, how we're going to think about education and how we pay for it and so on and so forth. Understand that. What kind of goals do you have? And again, trying to do it in a way where that 14-year-old can digest it, right? So let's maybe start small and just kind of think about the near term, but also like understanding what she really wants. Because one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is, as a high achieving parent, I came from a high achieving home, right? Where my dad was an attorney, my mom was in medicine. My dad went to Ivy League school with all four of his brothers. Wow. Education and being an athlete was like the expectation, but it was never really said. It was just what we saw and learned, and that was the legacy that he kind of built for us, right? But it was hard being in a high achieving home because like there wasn't really another option, right? And so a lot of the goals that I'd set for myself really weren't really set by myself. It was like set by kind of what I was experiencing and observing from like somebody like my father, right? And so for my daughter, I really want her to have ownership in what this looks like, because quickly when we talk about youth athletes, a lot of us as parents, some of the pressure we put on our kids is that we are setting kind of this standard for what looks like success, that for our kids may not be the path they want to take, right? And so we end up being really disappointed when they don't make a team, or disappointed when they don't perform well in a game. But the reality is that like, we can't want it more than them. You know what I mean? We can't want something for them that they don't want, right? Yeah. And so like one of the questions I had before we kind of close today is like, what unintended messages or feelings or emotions or whatever it might be can at sometimes like high achieving parents send their children about success and self-worth that they didn't mean to, right? Like that they accidentally kind of start to build this thesis for them that actually sends them in the wrong direction.
Oh man, this is another 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Part two.
Right. Here we go. Listen, and Harry, listen, man, like I honor you for, and this is the thing too with your daughter. Like by the way, I love the Gracie Summit idea. Absolutely love it. If we continue to exist with separating our professional life from our personal life, it's really easy to lose sight of the fact that y'all are sitting on some amazing tools from Limitless Minds that can be applied. Now, maybe not exactly lockstep, right? But applied to my personal life and with my kids.
Right.
And some wise prophet once said, you always find what you're looking for.
Wonder who that was.
I wonder who I heard that from. Josh came into my club one day and shared that. And I always quote Josh with saying that. Yeah. If we allow our brain to go into integration mode, it's going to be easier to connect the dots between, man, we got this tool with Limitless Mind. I'm going to ask Gracie about this today. It's just easy. It makes it easier. Okay. Back to answering your question, unintended communication. Listen, I'm going to go here because, and I don't mind, Josh knows I don't mind ruffling feathers with my parent. Listen, if you're listening and you're a parent like this and you're still here and you haven't gotten sick and tired of hearing me or any of the other two of us, like you might hang up now, but I'm going to encourage you to just lose the ego and just check this out. Okay. Most parents don't realize, especially, everyone's quick to talk about the car ride home. Like, don't talk about it. Okay. Most parents don't realize the critique they're delivering in the car isn't really about your kid's performance. It's their own identity tied to the outcome of their kid's performance, their own perfectionism, and their own fear of being seen as the parent of an underperformer. The car ride home is usually a report card on the parent, not the kid. And the unintended message they're sending to the kid is, my performance is really about my parents. It's about how I make them look. It's about how I make them feel. You guys picking this up?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is the unintended paradigm that is happening, not just in cars, but in homes, that kids are not stupid. And the research will tell you that psychologically speaking, Josh, you know this better than anyone. They pick up on our energy. They feel it. And they're interpreting it, maybe not necessarily consciously, but their body is interpreting it. And not only is it sending an unintended message, but it's putting a straitjacket on them.
Yeah.
I mean, and none of us, if Harry and Josh and any of the listeners today, it's like, hey, if I asked you, hey, do you want to harm your kid? No one's going to say yes.
Right.
But there's this whole body of research in this space called achievement by proxy. Dr. Ian Toffler, go check him out. That's an actual clinical term. And he described this as, where a parent's self-worth becomes tied to their kid's athletic success. And it's producing this pressure that crosses into this form of psychological harm. And we don't know when it's going to show up. Is it going to show up when they get home? Or is it going to show up 15 years down the road in some form or fashion? And I tell people this, it's like, Jared, you work with big leaguers, they make all this contract. I said, yeah, the first 6 to 12 months, I'm typically unwiring stuff that their parents said to them when they were 8, 9, and 10 years old.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's the reality of it.
Yeah.
So that's a big one, big one that I see happening.
It's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I got to check him out too. I mean, because that makes sense. I mean, that's good. Like, and like you said, you see all this, you're on social media or whatever, you see, folks talking about the car ride home and various things, but that, the perspective that is really not about even the kid's performance, is really about the parents.
Yeah.
Is real. Yeah.
It's a fun story. It's not so much fun because like I saw part of my ego just slip away, but kids are getting older. At one point they thought like all my stuff was cool. And, when my dad passed away in 2022, we were cleaning out my old childhood home. Well, guess what was there? My old trophies. So there was this big one. We won the championship. I don't even know. I might have been 10 or 11 years old. Mm-hmm. So my son picked it up. He's like, Dad, I want to bring this home. I'm like, man, we got to ship that. Nah, come on, man. So it's interesting. Just this past year, he was rearranging his room, getting some new cooler stuff because he didn't want the kiddie stuff anymore. And guess what I found in the garbage?
The trophy. And I'll be honest with you. It was like, oh my gosh, he doesn't think I'm cool anymore.
But then it occurred to me, our kids don't inherit our trophies. They inherit our patterns. So what patterns are we giving them? What patterns are we giving them when they don't do something the way we would have done it? Or how they performed in school that day? Or how they dealt with a friend? Or how they responded in the group chat? This is the reality. I mean, I caught my son saying something the other day. I'm like, oh my Lord, I said that.
Yeah.
They're inheriting our patterns. So it's kind of a cross-pollination of what we've been talking about in this whole youth market. Like, we got to stop worrying about the dang trophies, y'all, and start being concerned about raising strong, resilient human beings. Because if social media is a snapshot of where we're going in our society, we're in real big trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that we were joking about part 2. I feel like we need to get you back again, and we can kind of go deeper on some other stuff too. I mean, there's so much, rich that is rich and valuable here, and we could talk for hours. So hopefully you'll come back and visit us and the whatnot. But before we go, I want to make sure everybody knows, like, where can they find you? Where can they learn more?
How can they get involved with the Clutch Club? That's what they really want to know.
Yeah.
How can they get involved with the Clutch Club?
Well, glad you asked me that now, because if you asked me that last year, my answer would have been a little different. Pretty easy. Just go to jamesreid.com, JAMESREID.com. That's basically where all paths lead to where you can find me. I'm on all social media platforms at James. Unfortunately, I had to go this route, Josh. James J.R. Reid, because nothing else was available. Not J.R. Reid with a 2-foot flat top. But go there. Josh, you mentioned the Clutch Club. That's really my community for former athletes, or at least athlete-minded men who are now executives, leaders, entrepreneurs. Amazing brotherhood we got there. It's just my way of walking them through what I was walking my private clients through. The way to get into the club is you need to first take my assessment. So I have this whole assessment called the Invisible 4 assessment. I basically help people identify which of the hidden performance traps are really blocking them from their best, both professionally and personally. That's Josh. Now that's step one. If you don't take the assessment, you're never going to learn about the club. Because here's what I found. I found that men were getting into the club and they were content consumers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I got too many driven men like the three of us who don't have time for content consumers. If we're going to invest a significant amount of time and money into something, I want to get better. I want to be around dudes who are pushing me. Again, just like we had as athletes. So guys have to earn their spot in the club. No longer is it, fill out this application, we'll get on a call. And no, you got to prove it to yourself and prove it to us that you belong in the club. So take the assessment. It'll open you up to some things. We give some resources at the end of the assessment so we don't leave them hanging. Mm-hmm. But that's the way. JamesReid.com, or you can check me out on social.
Love it, man. I love it.
Thank you.
Well, we're grateful for being here, dude.
Thank you so much for being with us today and not only helping our listeners, but helping us as well. You're the man. You are the man, JR.
Appreciate you, you guys. I love great people. Keep doing the solid work y'all are doing. The fact that you're bringing this conversation up, that this just wasn't a performance episode, says a lot about where your guys' hearts are. So I honor you for really leaning into an industry that's gotten very watered down and is skirting the truth in a lot of ways. So guys, golf clap to you guys.
Golf clap. Hit it with that. Yeah. Well, listen, we're
come have pizza with me in Lake Nona on Saturday. Come on, get over there.
Lake Nona. Love Lake Nona, dude. Lake Nona.
Well,
listen, man.
Sponsor.
Hey, as we sign off, you know what we always say, Josh, to the audience. You don't have to be sick to get better.
To get better.
Let's go.